Good morning. So let's get started at 7:07. Sorry, I joined a little late. So today's discussion, it is a very important one. We are going to talk about VPN solutions. So in that, we'll try to understand what are the different VPN solutions we have, and how do they help us in connecting our on-premises environment to Azure cloud. Okay, right. So the topic of today's discussion is Azure VPN gateway. Right, that is the topic of today's discussion. So when we say VPN gateway, it's a service that which will help you to go ahead and deploy VPN solutions. There are again multiple types of VPNs which we'll discuss in a time. And today itself we are going to discuss. Okay. Now, the term VPN, I think you might already heard about this. VPN stands for virtual private network, isn't it? So it stands for virtual private network. Okay. Private network. So what is this VPN does is it basically creates a secure channel between a source and destination, so that the traffic that whatever you have between a source and destination at network layer, it is encrypted, it is secure, right? So that is the purpose of this VPN or virtual private network. So the same concept applies here on Azure. Azure VPN gateway will help you to securely connect from a source and destination. So based on the VPN type you use, the source and destinations will change. Okay. Now, so a couple of very important things. In order to use this VPN gateway, service, you need to use what do we call it as a service called as virtual network gateway. So in order to deploy a VPN gateway, what service do you use, guys? You use a service called as virtual network gateway. So using this virtual network gateway, we will be deploying our VPN gateways. Okay. Now, so your virtual network gateway comes as two types. Okay. So your virtual network gateway is of two types. Okay. I'm just putting this to avoid the confusion. Okay. People will confuse here. The virtual network gateway is of two types. One we call it as VPN gateway. The other one we call it as express route gateway. So VPN gateway comes of two types. One we call it as VPN gateway. The other one we call it as express route gateway. One is express route gateway, and this one is what? VPN gateway. So what we are discussing today is VPN gateway. Okay, so VPN gateway. So in order to deploy your VPN gateway, you need to go with virtual network gateway service. In that virtual network gateway service, select the gateway type as VPN gateway, not express route gateway. So that is very important. So your VPN gateway again comes with two types. Your VPN gateway again comes with two types. One we call it as policy-based VPN. The second one is route-based VPN. So what are the two types? Policy-based VPN. We'll understand the differences, okay? Policy-based VPN. The other one is route-based VPN. Route-based VPN. So the point here you need to know is your VPN gateway should be deployed by using a service called as virtual network gateway. So when you use the virtual network gateway, it basically gives you two types of VPN solutions, two types of gateway, I'm sorry. One is called as express route gateway, which is used for a specific purpose called as express route. And the other one is VPN gateway. That's what our topic of discussion is. So when you select a VPN gateway while you deploy your virtual network gateway, again the VPN gateway comes with two types. One is called as policy-based VPN. The second one is called as route-based VPN. We'll understand the differences between them in some time. But this is what you should be knowing initially. Right. So then when you deploy your VPN gateway comes with various SKUs. So your VPN gateway comes with various SKUs. So the SKU stands for stock keeping unit. So your VPN gateway comes with various SKUs. SKU stands for stock keeping unit. So remember these terms. SKU stands for stock keeping unit. A SKU is nothing but it is a model or edition. Model or edition. So you can, those are synonyms as you can say, right? So your VPN gateway comes with various models or SKUs. So whenever you deploy a VPN gateway, you need to select the right SKU based on your requirement. Now the SKU is decided. The SKU is decided based on, what do we call it as? The SKU is decided based on these factors. Okay, the SKU is decided based on this. Okay, so the bandwidth you need, which we call it as throughput or bandwidth. Throughput or bandwidth, that which you need. The number of tunnels you need. A tunnel is nothing but a connection. The number of tunnels you need. Number of point-to-site connections and all those things will come into picture here. So the point here to know is based on predominantly the throughput that which you are in need of, how much Gbps throughput you need. Based on that, you select the model or SKU. So when we talk about VPN gateway, the VPN gateway comes with three connection types. Your VPN gateway comes with three connection types. Very important, okay? So the VPN gateway comes with three connection types. Now these connection types define what type of VPN you are using. So the VPN connection types are these. First one is site-to-site VPN. Second one is VNet to VNet VPN. Third one is point-to-site VPN. So these are the three VPN types that which you get when you go with VPN gateway. So these are all three VPN solutions. So now the question comes, when I deploy a gateway, when should I be using a site-to-site VPN? When should I be using a point-to-site VPN? When should I be using a VNet to VNet VPN? So at a very high level, a site-to-site VPN is nothing but it is a VPN solution that interconnects your on-premises network to Azure. So what does site-to-site VPN does? Site-to-site VPN interconnects your, what do we call it as, on-prem environment, on-prem with what? Azure cloud. So if you have a requirement where you got some resources in your data center and you want them to be connecting to your Azure cloud resources or talking to them, then what VPN solution you use? You use site-to-site VPN. Then the other VPN type we got is VNet to VNet. A VNet to VNet VPN solution connects to virtual networks. Connects to virtual networks. So yesterday we were seeing one solution, isn't it? What is the solution yesterday we were discussing when it comes to the interconnectivity between the VNets? It is VNet peering, right? So similar to VNet peering, you can also use VNet to VNet VPN solution to enable connection between two virtual networks. Okay. Now, the third connection type we get is point to site. A point to site connects your on your end user machines. Okay, your end user machines. With Azure Cloud. It is similar to your VPN solution that which you use to connect to your office network. So you will have a VPN client on your local machine, and then you initiate the connection and you connect to the what do you call it as VPN server of your office, isn't it? Same here. So instead of your office network, you connect to the Azure Cloud network. So your VPN gateway comes with three connection types. So one is site to site, second one is VNet to VNet, third one is point to site. Based on your requirement, you go with one of these connections. So a site to site connection connects your on-premises network to Azure Cloud. VNet to VNet connects your two virtual networks, which enables communication between them. That to a VPN solution. And point to site is another VPN solution which you use to connect your your end user machines over the internet to connect to the Azure Cloud. They can connect to point to site VPN and access the resources on cloud as if they are on Azure Cloud network. So your VPN gateway comes with three connection types. Right. So as I said, in order to deploy your VPN solution, you need to go with a service called as VPN gateway. Now, when we deploy a VPN gateway, what are the things needed to deploy a VPN gateway? Right? So requirements to deploy Azure VPN gateway. Right? What are the requirements to deploy a Azure VPN gateway? So to deploy your Azure VPN gateway, you need the following things. Okay. So a VPN gateway will sit in a VNet. Okay. So you require a VNet. Your VPN gateway will be sitting in a VNet. So you need a VNet. In that VNet, with a subnet with exactly the same name. What is the subnet name? Gateway subnet. So the name of the subnet should be exactly this. What is the name? Gateway subnet. It cannot be anything other than this. The name of the subnet should be a gateway subnet. Okay, it should be the gateway subnet. So that is your first requirement. The second requirement is you need to specify what type of VPN, what type of gateway you would like to go. Then we know that it is VPN gateway. Then you need to select the type of VPN gateway. As I already explained, there are two types of VPNs or VPN gateways. One is policy based and third one is second one is route based. And then you need to have a public IP address to the VPN gateway. So because your VPN gateway is used to connect your on-premises, isn't it? And this connection will flow through the internet. So obviously, your VPN gateway requires a public IP address. Now, apart from this, you also need to specify the SKU. What SKU you would like to go with? Right? I already explained a SKU is nothing but stock keeping unit, which will help you to specify what is the throughput you are looking for, and then what do we call it as, how many tunnels you are looking for, and how many point to site connections you are looking for. All those things are defined by your SKU. So in order to deploy your VPN gateway, these are the things that which you need to have in place. Right, guys? Now, so we'll start first with site-to-site VPN. Okay, we'll start first with site-to-site VPN. We'll understand what site-to-site VPN is, and then we'll go with the VNet to VNet. If time permits, we'll also cover point to site. Okay. Now, so the first discussion is site-to-site VPN. Concentrate, very important. So site-to-site VPN. So site-to-site VPN, as we know, it interconnects your on-premises network to Azure. Okay. So assume that you got an on-premises environment. Let us say this is your on-premises environment. And you also got a cloud environment like this. Okay. So on-premises, let us say you got some servers here. Okay, you got some servers here, and you want these servers to be talking to the servers hosted on Azure cloud. Right? On Azure, you let us say you got some virtual networks. Right? This is the basic networking component, isn't it? You may have multiple virtual networks like this. And these virtual networks have got some virtual machines in there, and they have to talk to the resources on premises. Right? So which basically means that you are going to go and create a connectivity from here to here. Isn't it? That's your final requirement. So how does this actually work? Right? So let us say this is on-prem, and this is your Azure cloud. Maybe in a location, central US. Okay, location, central US. So in order to attain this, you need to go ahead and deploy a VPN solution. In order to attain this, you need to deploy a VPN solution here. So as I already explained, whenever you deploy a VPN solution, it requires a VNet. Let us say you got a VNet with the name VNet3, and it has got an IP address 10.3.0.0 or 2.0.0/22. Okay, so let us say this is a VNet, and this VNet will be used to connect it to the on-premises. So in this virtual network, you're going to deploy, what do we call it as, a VPN solution, right? You're going to deploy a VPN gateway here. So this is your VPN gateway. And we know that the VPN gateway, it will not sit directly under the VNet, rather it will be sitting where, guys? It will be sitting in a where? It will be sitting in a subnet, isn't it? It will be sitting in a subnet. So I think, right. So let us say this is a subnet. And what is the name of the subnet we should be going with? What should be the name? The name of the subnet should be gateway subnet, isn't it? So that is the exact name that which you should be using. So the name of the gateway should be, subnet should be gateway subnet. Right? That should be the name. Exactly the same name you should be using. And in this gateway subnet, you go and deploy your VPN gateway. So let us call this VPN gateway name as gateway 3. Okay, I'm calling this as gateway 3. So when we create a subnet, apart from this gateway subnet, you may also have another subnet here itself, where you may have some virtual machine sitting, and you may also have some subnets here hosting your virtual machines. Right, this is the scenario. Now I have a requirement of these machines across these VNets and across in this VNet to talk to the resources here on premises. So now let us go ahead and deploy this environment. Okay. So in the interest of time, I already deployed a virtual network, right? A virtual network. I already deployed a virtual network with the name called as VNet 3. And all I need to do is I need to create a subnet here, right? To host my VPN gateway, I need to create a subnet, and the name of the subnet should be gateway subnet. So in order to create a gateway subnet, you don't use this option called as subnet, rather you use this option called as gateway subnet. So in this gateway subnet, your virtual VPN gateway will sit. Your VPN gateway will sit here. So the minimum number of IP addresses needed here would be either /27 or /28. So the minimum number of IP addresses needed here is /28, which gives you around 11 usable IPs. If you go with /27, it gives you around 27 usable IPs. So whenever you are creating a VPN gateway, the minimum number of IP addresses required would be either /27 or /28. So I am going with /27, which is giving me how many IP addresses, guys? Usable IPs, 27 usable IPs. We go with 27. That should be fine. So now I have a VNet with the required gateway in it, into which I can deploy my virtual network gateway or VPN gateway. So in order to deploy my VPN gateway, I need to go to this service. What service I need to go with? Virtual Network Gateway Service, isn't it? Virtual Network Gateway Service. So that's why I was explicitly mentioning here. So when you deploy your VPN gateway, the service that what you should be using is what, guys? It is your Virtual Network Gateway. So this is a service that which you use. So using this service, you deploy your VPN gateway. So I'm here on Virtual Network Gateways. Create a Virtual Network Gateway. Now put it in the same subscription where your virtual network is. Name of the gateway, I'll call this as Gateway 3. Put it in the same region where your virtual network is. My virtual network is in Central US. So I'll put this one in Central US. Now, what type of gateway you want? Do you want an express route gateway or do you want a VPN gateway? We want VPN gateway. That's why I was saying your virtual network gateway comes as a two gateways. One is VPN gateway, the other one is express route gateway. For our requirement, it is VPN gateway. So I'll leave this as VPN. Now again, this VPN is of two types. That's what we were discussing. One is route based. The second one is policy based. So then when should you go with route based? When should you go with policy based? Very important. Okay. So remember this. Policy based is a legacy VPN solution. It's a legacy VPN solution, which means we don't use it, isn't it? It's the legacy VPN solution, which means we don't use it. So what is this? It is legacy solution. That's a point one. And it doesn't support IKE latest protocol. IKE stands for Internet Key Exchange. So this is the protocol used for communication between the on-premises and Azure cloud. So when you go with policy based, it uses IKE version 1 protocol. It uses IKE version 1 protocol, but the latest protocol is version 2. And it doesn't understand dynamic routing, doesn't support what? Dynamic routing. Isn't it? Dynamic routing. Doesn't support dynamic routing. So obviously, we will not be able to use this particular VPN type. So you are always recommended to use a VPN type called as route based. So route based, it is recommended to use for the reason it supports IKE version 2, and it supports dynamic routing feature. It supports dynamic routing feature, which is not there in what do we call it as policy based. So then you need to always go with route based. So then it is asking you the SKU. What is the SKU that which you would like to use? So let us try to understand this little bit. So when you talk about Azure Virtual Network Gateway SKUs, SKU stands for Stock Keeping Unit. It comes with 2 generations. The SKU comes with 2 generations. So each generation will have with multiple SKU or models. So based on your requirement, you will be deploying a VPN gateway with one of these SKUs. Now in generation 1, you got how many? 7 different SKUs. So here in generation 2, you got 8 different SKUs. Now the difference between each one of these is, if you look at closely, the difference between these is the throughput that which it supports. That's one difference. The number of tunnels they support, that is the another difference. The number of point-to-site connections they support, that is the third difference. So the difference between each one of these SKUs is the throughput they support, the number of tunnels they support, and what else? The number of point-to-site connections they support. If you are using point-to-site VPN, your VPN SKU defines how many user connections are allowed. If you are using a VPN gateway, what is the maximum throughput it supports? Is defined. How many tunnels you can have? I'll explain these tunnels in a while. How many tunnels you can have? So the maximum throughput you get in generation 1 is what? 1.25 Gbps. The maximum throughput you go with generation 2. When you go with generation 2, you get 10 Gbps. Right? That's the difference. The maximum point-to-site connections in generation 1, you get 1000. The maximum point-to-site connections you get in generation 2 is up to 10,000. The maximum number of tunnels you get in generation 1 is 30. Here you can go up to 100. That is the difference. So based on your requirement, you will be selecting the SKU, right? And I'm also putting the point-to-site connections. Isn't it? It supports. Right? You're getting, guys? So now, in this particular situation, I'll go with VPN Gateway 1, which gives me 650 Mbps. That should be fine for testing. Now there is this VPN Gateway 1 and VPN Gateway 1 AZ. Now the difference between these two, this is also supporting 650, this is also supporting 650 Mbps. The difference is this is coming with redundancy. Which one? With AZ is coming with redundancy. Right? High availability is guaranteed. Right. So for this requirement, let us go and select SKU. What SKU? VPN Gateway 1. Right? Generation 1. And in which VNet you want to put? I want to put it in VNet 3. And if you look at closely, it automatically picks the subnet. If you haven't created the subnet, it asks you to create it. You need to create it and come back, or you can create from here itself. Now, as I was explaining, your VPN gateway requires a public IP address, isn't it? Your VPN gateway requires a public IP address, right? It requires a public IP address. So we are going to go and create a public IP address for this guy, isn't it? So there will be a public IP address on this small. Okay. So this will have a public IP address. Okay, I'll put that. So what is the name of the public IP address you want to be with? Let us say gateway 3 public IP address. Gateway 3 public, right? And if you want to go with high availability and BGP solutions, you can go with it. I'll explain this active mode maybe at the end of this entire discussion, how this actually works. Okay. So I'm going to go and create a virtual network gateway with a VPN type called as VPN gateway, right? Not express route gateway, right? Go ahead, review, and create the VPN gateway. Right? This is how you will be deploying your VPN. Did we configure anywhere site to site, point to site, VNet? No. First step is create your VPN gateway. Then based on your requirement, you will be creating the required connection type. Simple. Right? Now, very important. Your VPN gateway deployment takes around 30 minutes. Your VPN gateway deployment takes around 30 minutes. So very important to know, don't get panicked, okay? So the deployment of VPN gateway takes 30 to 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So that is the deployment time, right? So in order to save some time, what I did is I already deployed 2 more gateways. So we just deployed gateway 3, isn't it? So the status of this gateway 3 is still updating. So it will take around 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes at least. But in order to save some time, I deployed 2 gateways. Okay, so gateway 1 and gateway 2. Gateway 1 is sitting in VNet 1. Gateway 2 is sitting in VNet 2. Okay. So we are going to go and use gateway 1 initially to do our site to site configuration. Okay. So I deployed gateway 1, and this is the public IP address of the gateway 1, and it is sitting in VNet 1. It is a route based VPN, and SKU is VPN gateway 1 SKU. Now, if you go to the configuration, you can always change the SKU in case if you need it, but you cannot change the generation. Generation will be as is, but you can change SKU within that particular generation. You cannot change this to AZ. Again, that is also you need to remember, right? So you can, if you selected AZ, you can change it to one of the SKUs of AZ. If you haven't selected AZ model, AZ SKU, then you cannot change this to AZ. What I'm saying is, you can change this to 2 of these. You cannot change this to 3 of these, right? Now, if you deployed with AZ, then you can change this to these. You cannot move your gateway from one generation to the other generation. That's what I'm trying to explain. Right, guys? Now, so this is how your gateway deployment will work. Now, let us get into our discussion of site to site VPN. So now, instead of gateway 3 will be gateway 1. Instead of VNet 3, we'll change it to VNet 1. Instead of 2.0.0/22, we'll say it 0.0.0/22. Okay. Now, I got a cloud environment with VNets and subnets in it. Now I got an on-premises environment. We want to interconnect them, isn't it? So then what do I need to do on premises? So on premises, you will be deploying a VPN device. So on premises, you will be deploying a VPN device. So there should be a VPN device deployed on premises. Very important. On-prem VPN device. You get it? So this on-premises VPN device should have a public IP address with public IP address. So this on-premises device will have a public IP address, This VPN gateway will have a public IP address. That's where the connectivity is coming into picture. So these two devices will talk to each other using the public IP addresses. So whenever they talk to each other, the communication will happen on a secure tunnel. The communication happens on a secure tunnel, right? It happens through a secure. And what protocols does it use? It uses to encrypt the traffic on a secure tunnel. It uses protocols IPsec, IKEv2. These are the protocols used. So the point to know is your VPN connection will flow through a secure tunnel, and that secure tunnel, through that secure tunnel, you will be routing the traffic. On IKEv2 or IPsec, right? That is very important. So then, how do we demonstrate this? That is very important. So what VPN device I can deploy? Right? That is very important. So what type of VPN devices supported on premises you need to check. Okay. So Azure VPN gateway supported devices or compatible devices. If you go to the documentation, so here, here you get the list of devices that are supported. You can use Cisco devices. You can use Checkpoint and other vendors as well. You can use Juniper. You can use FortiGate. There is one model. If you got FI load balancer, you can use it. If you got Citrix NetScaler, you can use it. And there are various models that which are supported. So you need to deploy one of these models on premises with a public IP address assigned to it, which means it should be internet based. Right? Now, how do we demonstrate them? Right? So if you look at closely, a Windows 2012 server is supported. So we are going to deploy a Windows 2012 server. On that Windows 2012 server, we are going to deploy a routing and remote access feature. And this routing and remote access feature on a Windows server will help us to demonstrate this scenario. So on premises, what is that we are using? We are going to use a Windows. We are use 2019, okay, 2019 server. That will be on premises VPN device. On this Windows 2019 server, you need to install routing and remote access role. What role? Remote access role. This is the first step. So deploy Windows 2019 server with routing and remote access role in it. So once you have this routing and remote access role, you need to configure this as a VPN device and configure it as a VPN device. Right? So since we don't have on-premises environment, we deploy this Windows 2019 on Azure itself and assume that it is on-premises environment. You get it? So we are going to deploy this on Azure itself, and we will think that it is on-premises environment. Okay, guys? Now, so let us deploy one Windows server, and then we will install routing and remote access solution on this and configure this as a VPN device. Then we will see how do we create this connection between these two, right? Then we'll see how do we create connection between these two. Okay, so that is our discussion point. Okay, now, so let us go to the portal, look for virtual machines, create a virtual machine, and remember, whatever the virtual machine we are creating, we are assuming that it is in on premises. Okay. Now I'll create a resource group for this. I'll say on-prem something like this, and I'll call this as routing and remote access VM or RVM. And let us deploy this in central India, right? And we'll deploy a Windows 2019 server. Okay, so local admin credentials. This is the longest log. Concentrate, every bit is important. Okay, right? Okay, so local admin credentials. And I assume that our on-premises VNet uses 192 series. On premises, we use 192.168 as an IP address series, as an IP address. Okay, so something like this. So your on premises systems, let us say they use these IP addresses. So let us go ahead and put these IP addresses. Let us call this as subnet 1. So this entire network is 192.168 network. We are assuming that it is on premises network, and on premises I am creating a Windows server which will be used for VPN purpose. Okay, so that's what we did. And what is the IP address we are using on premises? 192.168.0.0/24. Okay, now, so because we are deploying a virtual machine, your virtual machine will also have a public IP address. Your VPN gateway anyway got a public IP address, isn't it? So now, once we install this and configure, this device will be connecting to this device using public IP address, and this gateway one will be connecting to your on-premises VPN device using the public IP address. So that's why the devices should have public IP addresses, right? They should have public IP addresses. Okay. Now, so your machine is deployed, the on-premises VPN device. Let us log into this. On this, we are going to install a role called as routing and remote access role. Log into this. So on this server, you are going to install what, guys? You are going to install routing and remote access role. Okay, so that role will help you to configure this Windows server as a VPN device. So I'm going to this start and get into server manager. Right, so under server manager, you got this option, add roles and features. It is still settling down, so let us wait. So this has got a public IP address, isn't it? So this is the public IP address of your on-premises VPN device. Okay? This is the public IP address of your on-premises VPN device. Okay? Right. Right. So I did hit that add roles and features on server manager. Say next, go to server roles. What role you want to install? A remote access role. Okay. So say next. Leave everything default. Here, make sure that you select VPN and routing options. So you need to make sure that you select VPN and routing options and install the role. Right. So once the role is installed, this machine to be configured as a VPN device and a connection to be created with your VPN gateway on Azure. So while this goes on, let us pick the public IP address of our VPN gateway. Go to your virtual network gateways. Go to your gateway one, that's what you are using. Now, what is the public IP address of this? This is the public IP address. So let us go ahead and put the public IP address here. So that is the public IP address of your VPN gateway. This is the public IP. So your on-premises device has got a public IP address. Your VPN gateway has got a public IP address. Right. So let us go back to our VM. It is still installing. Just waiting for the installation of the role to complete. Okay, so you see that installation is successful. It requires some configuration. I'll close this wizard. So go to this console here under the tools. You got this console called as routing and remote access. Go to that. So this routing and remote access console will help you to configure this. Okay, right. So if you look at the service is not yet started because we didn't configure it. Right click this server name and choose this option called as configure and enable routing and remote access. Say next. Now it is asking you configuration, what type of configuration you want to go with. Now if you look at closely, or rather if you understand our scenario, so this is a private network on Azure cloud, isn't it? This is a private network. Sorry, this is a private network on premises, right? And this is your private network on Azure cloud. So you would like to go ahead and create a connection, or rather a secure connection between two private networks, isn't it? So you are going to go and create a secure connection between two private networks. So that's why, so when you configure your VPN on premises, you need to select a secure connection between two private networks. Okay guys, secure connection between two private networks. And it does create a demand dial interface. We need that, we leave that as yes. The IP address also leave it automatically. Go ahead and create your interface, right? So this creates a virtual interface for you, which requires a configuration to connect it to your VPN gateway on Azure cloud. Right. So now it is asking you, welcome to the demand dial interface. Please configure. That's what it is asking. So now here is where the configuration comes to place. Right. So I'm naming this interface as on-prem to Azure. Just connect interface name to identify that it's a connector. Say next. Now what type of connection you want? We obviously want a VPN connection. Then what VPN type you would like to go with? Now what protocol your VPN gateway supports? It supports IKE V2. So I select the VPN type as IKE V2. Don't select other ones. Okay, it should be always IKE V2 because a VPN gateway understands only IKE V2. Right? Say next. The IP address of the destination. So what is the destination of this guy? What is the destination of the VPN device on-premises? The destination is this one, isn't it? Destination is nothing but the gateway on Azure, isn't it? The destination is the gateway on Azure, isn't it? So I need to go ahead and copy the IP address of my VPN gateway. I need to put here, which means this VPN device is establishing a connection with this VPN device, which is on Azure cloud over the internet. Right? Say next. Leave protocols and security as is. Static routes will add later. Username, password not needed. Go ahead and finish. So what it basically did is it created an interface, a demand dial interface, and which basically helps you to connect to this particular IP address on a VPN IKEv2 type. So, but before we go and test the connection, we need to configure the other side. On Azure cloud also you have to create a connection to on-premises. But here we need to configure few more things. Couple of very important things is go to the demand dial interface you created, go to the properties of that. Very important thing that which you need to configure under the security is pre-shared key. So I am configuring a pre-shared key. Let us say test@123. Let us say this is the pre-shared key we used. Now, what is the purpose of this pre-shared key? Why do we need this pre-shared key? So the purpose of this pre-shared key is what did we use? This one, isn't it? So the purpose of this pre-shared key is, see, this device has to connect to the device on cloud, isn't it? This device has to connect to this device on cloud. Then how does the authentication happens? The authentication happens using this shared key. So whatever the shared key you give here on premises, the same shared key should be used here as well when you configure the connection the other way. So whenever there is a connection negotiation happens, the authentication or the validation of the authenticity of these devices will be done by looking at these pre-shared keys. If the pre-shared key matches, then the connection will be successfully established between the devices. If the pre-shared key doesn't match, then obviously the connection fails. So that's the purpose of this pre-shared key. So the pre-shared key here is used to authenticate to the destination or to have an initial handshake with the destination. Right? Now, couple of other things. There is this ideal time, which means if there is no traffic between the source and destination, in our case on-premises VPN device to Azure VPN gateway, if there is no traffic for 5 minutes, the connection will be dropped. And we don't want to do that. We want to have a persistent connection, which means whether there is a traffic flow or whether there is no traffic flow, the connection should be intact. So that's what we say, that it should be persistent connection. So on this demand dial interface, by going to the properties, I configured a pre-shared key, and I also set the connection type as persistent connection. Those are two settings that which we did. The third setting what you need to do here is you need to add static routes. So what is that you need to add? You need to add static routes. This is very important. Okay, you need to add static routes. Now, what are these static routes? And why do I need them? So static routes are nothing but the network configuration of your Azure cloud. What IP addresses do you use on Azure? So if these devices here has to talk to the devices here, the VPN gateway on-premises should know the routes for these, which means it should know to what IP addresses it can talk to. So that you add as a static routes here. So the static routes are nothing but the VNets details or the network details of Azure cloud to which on-prem machines should talk or communicate. That is the purpose of the static route. That's the purpose of the static routes. So I need to go and add all my VNet details, or rather the subnet details here, so that my VPN gateway can talk to them. Otherwise, it will not. So go ahead and add IPv4 static routes. So right click the static routes and say new static route, and you are creating a static route to what? To this interface which we created, and I need to add my destination details here. I mean, in this case, I'm going to go and add my VNet details here. Which VNet? Here, Azure cloud hosted VNets. And do I need to add all the VNets in the Azure? No. To whichever the VNets, the on-premises resources need to connect, those VNets to be added here. Okay. Now, so let us say 10.0.0.0. So that is my, what do we call it as a VNet 0 IP address, and I will add it here, right? The subnet mask is not valid, it says. How much it is? 25, 25. Okay. We did 22, isn't it? So when it is /22, just you can go to this subnet calculator. The cider calculator. Okay. Cider subnet calculator. And you say 10.0.0.0/22. Right? What is the subnet you are supposed to use? 255.255.252.0. Right? So your network team will provide this, but in case if you don't have, you can go to that calculator and right? Should be 10.
It's 255. First one, Vijay. First one.
Thank you. Right. So we can add it. Right. So if you have multiple VNets, I need to add. See again, to whichever the VNet your on-premises need to talk, so those VNets should be added here, isn't it? Right? Like this. I'll add all my VNets to whichever my on-premises need to talk. So this is very important step. Now, whether you use Cisco device, whether you use Juniper, whether you use a Windows server like this, the configuration will remain same. Whatever we did now, it will remain same. Of course, you don't install routing and remote access roles and so on, but this configuration where we did ahead and assigned a public IP address, and then we did assigned a pre-shared key, we did configure a static routes. All these things will be there, whether you use whatever the type of device it is. And most of the time, this device on-premises will be configured by your network team. You need not have to worry about it, but it's good to understand that these are the things that needs to be configured. So most of the time, you provide your VPN public IP address, and you share pre-shared key, whatever you set here, and your on-premises device will be configured by the network team itself. But in this case, yes, we have to. Okay. Now, so this concludes the configuration on-premises side, which means I got an on-premises environment with a VPN device ready to connect to my VPN gateway on Azure cloud. But I need to create a connection the other way as well, isn't it? Right? So that's where you go to your VPN gateway, or gateway rather, go to the connections, and you need to create a connection called site to site connection. So add connection. The connection name, I'll say that Azure to on-prem, Azure to on-prem. Right? This is the name of the connection. And the connection type is what? Site to site, isn't it? Site to site. And you're connecting your gateway 1 to on-premises. So my gateway is gateway 1. And there is this configuration called as local network gateway. Now, what is this local network gateway? Let us try to understand this, okay? So let us try to understand this local network gateway. Very important, concentrate. So what is that? Local network gateway. Now, a local network gateway is nothing but it's also a gateway. Okay, it's also a gateway. Now, what will be there in this? A local network gateway will have on-premises configuration details. It will have what? On-prem configuration details. So your VPN gateway has to connect to the on-premises, isn't it? So that information should be configured somewhere, isn't it? So that will be configured in this local network gateway. Now, what on-premises details it will have? It will have on-prem VPN device public IP address. It will also have on-prem routes. These are the two things it will have. So your local network gateway is a gateway which will have your on-premises configuration details. And this local network gateway will be attached to your VPN gateway. You're getting? Your local network gateway will be attached to your VPN gateway. So what I'm trying to say is create a local network gateway with this configuration and attach that to your what? To your VPN gateway. So this local network gateway will be attached to my VPN gateway. It will be attached to my VPN gateway. Right, guys? Like this. So your VPN gateway knows on-premises details from where? From local network gateway. That's what is purpose of local network gateway. So let us go ahead and try to create a local network gateway by hitting this choose a local network gateway because we did create it. So let us go and create a local network gateway. I'll call this as gateway 1 local network gateway 1. And it is asking you IP address of the endpoint. Now, what is the IP address of the endpoint here? It is on-premises VPN device IP address. And then IP address space. Now, this is routes of your on-premises network. Like we added VNets as a static routes, here also on Azure, you need to add what are the IP addresses that your on-premises environment use. That you need to add here, which will be provided by your on-premises network administrator. So in our case, we are using 192.168.0.0 as our on-premises IP address. So go and add as a route. Is it? Go ahead and say OK. Right? Now, it is asking you a shared key. What is this? The same pre-shared key that what we used earlier, which is test@123. This is the key that which we used on premises, the same key should be used here as well. So enter your pre-shared key and create a connection. Create a connection. So this creates a connection from Azure VPN gateway to your on-premises, right? So you should be seeing this connection here. Just waiting for that connection to be displayed. Right? The status is updating, which means it is still creating. Right? So this is the configuration which you need on Azure Cloud. So let us do a quick recap on whatever we did for site-to-site connection. So site-to-site connection involves two environments, on-premises and Azure Cloud. The site-to-site connection will help you to create a hybrid network infrastructure, which means on-premises network infrastructure connecting to your Azure network infrastructure. So on-premises site, in order to have this solution, you will be deploying a VPN device. And from the list of tested devices, you can pick one of them. And this device should have a public IP address assigned to it. And configure this VPN device with a pre-shared key and routes of your Azure network. So on Azure side, you need to deploy a VPN gateway. This VPN gateway sits in a VNet, and that too in a special subnet with the name called as gateway subnet. And this gateway will have a public IP address like your on-premises VPN device. Once you have this, create a connection between the gateway to on-premises using site-to-site connection. So when you create a site-to-site connection, the connection will ask you on-premises public IP address and then on-premises static routes, like what it asked on on-premises when you configure on-premises VPN device. And remember, once you create this connection, the traffic between the source and destination, it will flow through the internet and it flows as an encrypted traffic. The traffic is encrypted by using the protocols IPsec and IKEv2. Right? So once you have this configuration is done, you can go ahead and initiate a connection from on-premises to the device. So if you look at current status of this particular demand connection is disconnected, all you need to do is right click it and hit connect. And hit connect. Right? So now this device is connected. The status now is it is connected to what? To this IP address. Now what is this IP address? This is the IP address of VPN gateway on Azure. Right, guys? Yeah. So there you got a question. Okay, right. So this is the IP address to which it is connecting. Similarly, when you go back to your VPN gateway, this status should also be shown as a connected. Right? This status should also be shown as connected. It still says not connected. It should be changing the connection status. Did we do anything wrong here? Quickly check this IP address once, public IP address, whatever we used. Okay, right. So where do you check to which device you are connected to? This one, isn't it? So local network gateway should be tested. So 52.140.118.238. So that is right. So maybe we'll wait for another 2-3 minutes so that this changes the status to connect. Right. So to test this, right? So what we will do is we'll try to deploy a VM here. Okay, to test this, we'll try to deploy a VM here in this one of the subnet in the VNet, and the VM on premises should be able to talk to the VM here using a private IP address. So we don't assign, there is no requirement of public IP address for my on-premises device to talk to this device because there is a VPN connection between them, isn't it? So let us deploy a VM in this subnet in the same VNet, right? So let us go to the virtual machines. Let us create a VM, right? So let us say it is in center US. Let us call it as VM1, maybe a Windows machine. Another 10 minutes, we are done. Okay. So this you need to quickly test it. I'm putting it VNet1, subnet1. I'm creating a VM. And this VM is on cloud. In this scenario, this VM is on cloud and this VPN device is on premises. So we should be able to connect to this particular machine from our on-premises VPN device. That is the scenario we are going to quickly test, and that too using a private IP address. So while this gets deployed, so let us quickly discuss something beyond whatever we discussed. Now assume that there is another on-premises environment. Assume that there is another on-premises, and you may got multiple on-premises environments. Maybe this one is in Hyderabad and this one is in, let us say, in Chennai or Bangalore. So then how do I interconnect multiple on-premises environment to my Azure cloud? So in Bangalore environment also you deploy another VPN device, and this will also have its own public IP address, and this VPN device will be connected to what? To this same VPN gateway. So the on-premises configuration is deploy a VPN device, assign a public IP address, and add the static routes there, and create a connection to your gateway. On the VPN gateway side, you can use the same VPN gateway. You can use the same VPN gateway, which is gateway 1. Create another connection. Another connection what? Another site-to-site connection. This time the on-premises details will change. You create another local network gateway with the public IP address of your Bangalore VPN device and its routes. You get it? So on-premises side, you deploy a VPN gateway. You can use still the same gateway, whatever you have on Azure side for connectivity. Same whatever you did here, isn't it? Now you have multiple sites connecting to your VPN gateway. Now each connection here is called a tunnel. Each connection is called as a tunnel. So I have how many tunnels right now? 2 tunnels. And how many such tunnels I can go with? Depends on the SKU of your VPN, that whatever you selected. In VPN gateway 1, the SKU is what? The number of tunnels, how many you get? 30. Which means I can associate or connect 30 on-premises environment to this. And of course, the bandwidth will be shared between them. Okay? Bandwidth will be shared. So this type of configuration where multiple sites connecting to your VPN gateway, we call this configuration as multi-site configuration. What do we call it as? Multi-site configuration. So site to site is nothing but one site talking to your one on-premises site talking to your VPN gateway. Multi-site is nothing but multiple on-premises environment talking to your VPN gateway. We call it as multi-site configuration. Right? Okay, so let us go back and look at if our VM is deployed. Yes, it is. So let us go to the VM and log into this. Right, so we'll disable the firewall profiles on both the machines. So here on VPN device also. So you can also deploy another machine and test it, but I'm using the same VPN device here also because I don't want to deploy other machine for this. So I'm using the same VPN device on premises. Right, so I'm disabling these profiles, firewall profiles. Similarly, this is VM1 which we just deployed. So here also to disable. Right. So what we'll do is we are on VM1, which is on-prem, and if it ping 192.168.0.4, right? You should be. What is the IP address? Does this ping? It should be pinging ideally. Yeah. So you see there is an initial timeout, but it does ping, right? So which means the server which is on Azure cloud is talking to a server on premises, isn't it? So if you go and take RDP, right, 192.168.0.4, you can take RDP to your machine on premises. Similarly, you can also connect from on premises to where? Azure cloud, right? So MSTSC, right? So 192.168, it's 10 dot, isn't it? 10.0.0. This also. So now the communication from this environment to this environment is flowing through your VPN channel. Okay? That's how the site-to-site connection will work. Any questions related to this? Please ask. And again, this requires a lot of practice. So that concludes our site-to-site. Tomorrow we'll see the other two. Okay? So VNet, and point. Any questions related to this? Please ask.
Vijay, I have shared my email ID. Can you please send that link to that mail ID, new mail ID?
Yeah, I'll do it. I think I forgot that. I'll do that.
Sure, sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Is this concept clear, Naveen?
It's a great session, Vijay. Thanks.
But this requires a lot of practice. Okay, so you can play around with this by deploying VM and other stuff. If you got an on-premises lab with public IP address, you can practice with that also. But this requires a lot of practice. Right. So this is how this is one of the way of integrating your on-premises to Azure cloud. Right. So you are asking how does domain controllers and everything will replicate? So they replicate through this channel. Right. They replicate through this channel. Right. So if you want to host domain controllers here, they'll replicate through this channel. Now, if your machines has to go through on premises, let us say there is this VNet, if there is a machine here want to go through this, then we need to have a peering here, right? There should be a peering, right? There should be a peering, right? So there should be a peering between these two, and the traffic will go through this gateway and reach your destination, right? So that's how across the VNets we'll talk to the VNet one, which we call it as hub VNet, and through the hub VNet it will reach your VPN on premises and communicate with on premises. Right? I'm not sure you had seen my yesterday's class video. If you haven't, go through peering the class yesterday. Make sure that you are up to date. Okay? Right. So that concludes our today's discussion, guys. So we'll meet tomorrow. If you have questions, please ask. Otherwise, I'm done. Okay. So if no questions, we'll meet tomorrow at the same time. Have a great day. Bye.